Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. I'm glad to see your faces tonight. My name is Andrea Shipley. I'm the Communication and Organizing Director at the Wyoming Education Association. I'm here tonight with my colleague, Arthur Huron, who is here. He is our Southeast UNISERV Director, and he will be helping to take notes of tonight's forum. And so if there are folks that are concerned about this forum and couldn't make it tonight, we would happily share those notes with other people. I want to thank the Lander High School for allowing us to be in this venue tonight, and Kirk Wendell, who set all this up for us from the custodial staff. I want to thank Lynette Leahy, who's our president here, and the Lander Education Association, who helped to put this on. They are your local professional association for educators and education support professionals, and we believe that together we succeed. Also, thank you to our candidates who came tonight. All of them are here and ready to answer the questions that we have slated for them, as well as give you a candidate statement. And a special thank you to all of you who are in the audience tonight. I really love coming to Lander. I love to see the community involvement. We're estimating there's about 75 of you out in the audience tonight, and you keep pouring in, so good on you. Thank you, Lander. Tonight, we are going to hear from all 9 of the candidates, first through a 3-minute candidate statement, and then second, they will answer the questions on the paper that you received as you came in the door for you to write notes on. There are a total of 5 questions, and each candidate will be chosen randomly from a stack of cards with their names on it to answer each question within 90 seconds in order to keep us on time. I want to ask permission to interrupt the candidates at 90 seconds to keep us on schedule. Do you all give me permission? Great, thank you. I will now begin the forum by shuffling and drawing candidates at random for these cards. I want you to know that while we won't have a formal Q&A afterwards, you are able to do a reception out in the front foyer, and you'll be able to ask questions to each candidate on a one-on-one basis at that time, and we'll have refreshments for you. We hope to wrap up this portion of the candidate forum by 7:45 so that we have enough time to do the reception. So, now I'll go ahead and pick the first candidate to begin. Dee Harrison, will you give us your candidate statement?
I knew it was going to be me. Okay. You know, I've got a lot of educational experience. I've got 2 master's degrees, one in sports administration and the other one in teacher education. I've been in the educational field for 17 years. I've been a coach, and I've coached football, basketball, and track and field. At the college level, I've taught classes at the college level. I've taught classes at the high school level. I've taught classes at the elementary and junior high level, okay, for those past 17 years. I've also coached at all those levels also, so I understand that realm. I've been an athletic director for 4 years, 1 year in Wyoming and 3 years in Idaho. I've been trained in PLC model. I've also been trained in ALICE training. That's the safety training. Okay, I've also been trained in standard-based grading, okay, and also PBIS within the educational fields. Okay, I've been able to teach in 3 different states. Okay, I taught in Oregon for 6 years. I also taught in Idaho for another 6 years, and then I've been here in the state of Wyoming, and this is my 5th year here. I've enjoyed every bit of being here in Wyoming. The most important thing, though, is I've got 4 kids. One that graduated from LVHS 2 years ago as a valedictorian of this school. I've also got a senior this year, and I've got a senior this year that's graduating this year from LVHS, a sophomore, and then a 6th grader, and hopefully they will graduate from LVHS also. I hope with my experience as an educator across many fields, being in the classroom, outside the classroom, that I can help make some type of a difference for our students and make it a better place for them and for their teachers and for the administration, and have the communication that needs to happen throughout those 3 levels of education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Carrie Weller, you're next. Oh, excuse me, Carl. Mr. Weller.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Carl Weller. So I've been a resident of Lander. I moved here in '77. I've been here off and on since then. At various times I've moved out of the state to pursue different opportunities, but mostly I've been here. I'm not in the education field, although I do a lot with staff development, training, helping people enter the workforce, and I've done that over the years. So I bring that quality to the school board. I think it's important to have folks on the school board who are not just educators. I think it's really important to have a diverse group of people within this school board. I come from more of a management background and project background, team building, and those are things I believe are essential to us having a working, functioning school board. To look at organizations and draw on all the resources within that organization, within the community, to get the input that we need to move our community schools forward. And that's where my background has been. Over the years, I've taken on numerous projects that I didn't have a lot of experience with, and did the research, got the information I needed to create a success with those projects. So within the Lander community, I was recruited to project manage the Knowles facility project that was back around 2000. I was brought in because of my communication skills, my budget skills, and my working with organizations and how they're structured. This was a project that, at the time, the most recent project before that was the prison that was built in Lander that was late and incredibly over budget. We, because of the work that I did on that, we brought it in 3 months ahead of schedule and $190,000 under budget. So budgets are something that means something to me. Working with people to create a shared vision of where we're going and what we want to accomplish is important to me.
Thank you, Mr. Weller.
Thank you.
Brett Berg is next.
I'd like to start by thanking the WEA for putting this this candidate forum together. Lynette Leahy with the Lander Valley Education Association. I know she's worked hard at this, so thank you all for that. I am Brett Berg. I currently serve on the school board. I'm one of 2 incumbent candidates seeking re-election to the school board. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Tara Berg. I've lived in the community for 22 years. I went to public school a little bit north of here. I'm hoping nobody will hold that against me, but together we own and operate the Baldwin Creek Rental Center, small business just across the street we have for 21 years. 2 daughters, one's a junior in college, graduated from LVHS, the other a junior in high school, hoping to graduate from LVHS. You know, we're doing some great things in this district, and I hope to continue doing great things in this district. We have great kids, we have great staff. I just think that we need to continue in a positive direction, and I ask for your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. Teresa Neureiter, you're next.
Good evening. I want to tell you all thank you for taking the time out of your evening and coming out and spending your evening with us and making your decision on who you would like to represent you and your family in your local school district. I've been on the board since March of 2011. I was first appointed. There was an empty board seat, and I thought, well, I'm a mom of a student, and I'm a community member, and I can see some things I think that I could be helpful in, and so I took the time and effort, and I've been on the school board ever since. I ran the next November in election, and if I get elected this time, it'll be my 3rd time. I feel very strongly that we have finally crossed a milestone in our district, and we have some excellent people in the right places. We have excellent teachers, and we are all going in the same direction. We used to say that a lot, that it felt like we were going in different directions. If you remember, before we reconsolidated the schools, there was the South Bunch and the North Bunch, and the I can't even remember the name of the other school because now that's a memory. But we're all one group. We've crossed that bridge of consolidation, and we have built some new schools. We have made some significant changes since I became a school board member. I'm happy to say our schools are safer. I won't go into the details, but I can answer those questions for you at any time because I have them. Our schools are safer. We still have room to go with that, and that's going to be continuing discussion. Our school lunch program has improved. No longer will your tray be removed from your child's hands if mom, me, forgot to pay the bill. Your child still gets their lunch, and then we as a district, we take up that problem with you at a later time. It's not your child's fault if mom and dad forgot or cannot pay the lunch bill. School atmosphere. We've worked very hard to create respectful leadership at all levels of this district, and I'm proud to say I think it exists. And again, I'd be happy to answer more questions on that level at it if you would like. I'm proud to say that I brought the idea of challenge days to Riverton High School. I've participated in challenge days. It's an anti-bullying, all-inclusive type intervention. And I was invited again just recently. Unfortunately, I can't make it this year, but I'm proud to say that we've made some strong changes in our district to try to help your students, your children feel safe and accepted in their schools. We have made some changes with our expelled students. I've been a strong advocate of getting those kids mental health and substance abuse training. Also getting them into day reporting school if the whole situation can work out. So in other words, I'm experienced, I'm passionate, and I'd really appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Neureiter. John Wood, you're next.
Hi, I'm John Wood. I'm the last name on the second page of the handout, or the only name on the second page. I've been in Lander since 1991. My wife Penny Mann and I have raised 4 children in the district. We're the Manwoods. All of them have graduated from Lander Valley High School now. And so the first question is, why am I running for the school board now? And I think this is a people can answer this question differently, but for me, for many years, I've thought about running for the school board. I've attended lots of school board meetings back in the day. But I always felt that for me and for my kids, I didn't want to have my kids having a parent on the school board. And so now that Mackenzie, my number 4, is now graduated, class of 2018, I don't have any kids in the school district anymore. So I've had kids in the district for many, 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 many years, but now I don't. And I think I'm ready to have that independence and that view of being a recent parent. I think is really important. But for me, at least, it's also very important that I not have children in the district. Other things that you may know about me or not, Penny and I have lived here for, since I said 91. I have a 13-year career in K-12 education. Then I went over to college as a faculty member, became an administrator at the college. Been at the college for 17 years. Broad breadth of experience and expertise in K-20 education, mostly in the state of Wyoming. At the college, part of my duties are things like legislative. I attend legislative hearings, the Joint Education Committee, Joint Appropriations Committee, work with the legislatures and our local legislators on education issues. Lots of policy discussions. I'm sure that several of you will ask lots of questions out in the hallway about guns in schools and other items that you've read in the newspaper. Lots of discussion, been involved in all of those policies issues throughout the time. So that's kind of the main reason I'm running. I'm passionate about education, been in it for 30 years. I think now that my kids are out of school, I'm ready to be on the school board if you'll have me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Michelle Escudero.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today, and thank you to the Lander Education Association for organizing this forum, and for the Wyoming Education Association for advocating for Wyoming education staff and students. To be a happy and productive citizen in the innovation economy, our students need 21st century skills. They need creative problem solving, communication, critical analysis, collaboration, citizenship, character, and information technology and media literacy. To achieve these skills, our education methods must include career and applied learning that complements academic and theory mastery. This means community members need to be brought into the education process. We need to provide students with hands-on training and real problem-solving opportunities that allow them to have agency in their own learning. When students are allowed to explore their interests and evaluate their own progress, their achievement increases. We need leaders in our school board who understand these long-term goals and will work tirelessly to support our students, teachers, parents, and administrators in achieving them. And that's why I'm running for the school board. I believe that our administration must continue to build a structure that supports teachers in the classroom. Teachers need positive and constructive feedback that supports their creativity and effectiveness. As a parent and a school board member, I will always trust our teachers to teach our students. I know how to be a successful school board member, to be a public school champion who provides leadership that defines the district's vision and goals, defines the district's vision and mission, formulates goals, and defines outcomes, and continuously evaluates the progress. As a school board member, I will continually devote time to meeting students and teachers, learning about programs, and working in partnership with administrators. I will respectfully question assumptions and push for student outcomes to be the baseline from which we make our decisions. I will keep a sharp eye on equity to ensure that all of our students are given the chance and the opportunity to grow into their full potential. I will be accountable to the public at large. I believe that our public schools are the foundation of our democracy, and more specifically, I believe that our public schools are the foundation of the future economic health of this community. Built upon the foundation of respect, I will use my leadership and communication skills to work productively with school board members, especially when we don't agree. I will make difficult decisions and champion change when necessary. As a school board member, I will represent our schools at the local, state, and national levels. In particular, I will be a liaison from our district at the Wyoming legislature when necessary. I'm a dedicated, active community member, and I would diligently do the hard work of serving our community as a
Your
good
time,
listener.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Escudero. Jared Kale.
Thank you. Ms. Leahy, appreciate you taking the time to set all this up, and WEA, I do appreciate you having us here. I'm wondering if these are trophies whoever wins tonight. I think that would be fantastic. I'm also wondering if you particularly picked the gloomiest night of the entire year to have this. I'm wondering if
We
that's...
get good turnout.
Yeah, okay, all right, fair enough. I appreciate everyone coming tonight. This is an important event. My name is Jared Kale. I'm running for school board. I appreciate hoping to get your support come this election. If you can believe this, my parents were in the school district. They were products of our school district back in the 30s and 40s. They had a fantastic education at Fremont County School District, if it was even called the Fremont County School District back in those days. I started my school career at what was then called the Northside Grade School. My wife started her educational career at kindergarten at what was the Southside Grade School, which of course made her a traitor. We had a fantastic, both of us I can tell you had fantastic teachers, a fantastic educational upbringing in Fremont County School District number 1. Today, here in the audience, I have a daughter, Seneca, who is in 9th grade, my daughter, McKenna, who is a junior, and Lord willing, they will be graduates of Lander Valley High School soon. I can tell you they're both much more poised on this stage than I will ever be. They have had a fantastic educational experience throughout Fremont County School District number 1. Someone asked me while I was running, why are you doing this? What's your agenda? And I can tell you that I don't have an agenda. I don't hate a coach. I don't have a teacher that I want to get fired. I don't hate the school drop-off zones. I actually do kind of hate the school drop-off zones, but that's an entirely another topic altogether. I really don't have any kind of agenda. All I know is that I want, at the end of the day, the kids, the generation that comes after my girls, I want them to have the same incredible educational experience that I had here in Lander. Whatever successes that I may or may not have had throughout my life, I owe that to some degree, to a great degree, to the wonderful teachers that I had throughout my career. I am dedicated as a school board member, future potential school board member, to helping continue that excellence. And if you'll help me do that, that is the commitment that I give you tonight. So again, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kale. Mark Haskins?
Thank you, Andrea, Lynette, for organizing this event. Appreciate it. I also want to thank the other candidates for school board in their willingness to do the work it would take to be a good school board member, and especially the audience for weathering a little chilly evening and coming out. It certainly shows that you care about what's going on in this school district and with the children in this school district. My name is Mark Haskins. I am seeking a seat on the school board for really the issues that we are going to be discussing tonight, and that would be safety and security for our children, the quality of learning within this school district, community involvement, which I think is really important, and of course retaining good quality educators. Those are the issues on my mind as well. I feel like, well, first of all, it's kind of different to see an audience. I'm used to a little bit younger audience than the one I see out in front of me today, but I do feel I am qualified to sit on a school board. I started my career many, many years ago, 35 years ago. I spent a couple of years at the state reformatory in Worland, Wyoming, not as an inmate though, as a professional worker. I next spent a year at the Cathedral Home for Children in Laramie. I spent 5 years as a science teacher and coach. in Bighorn County School District number 1, and I spent the last 25 years here at Fremont County School District number 1 as a primarily chemistry teacher, science teacher, and a coach. So with that type of experience, I think I know what is required of these young people to get out and meet their potential and get out into the workforce with the skills necessary to be successful. Later in my career, I was asked to spend a week in Washington, D.C., where I met the President of the United States in the West Wing of the White House. I conferenced with the Secretary of Education, and I rubbed shoulders with many prominent scientists. And in doing so, they shared with me what they perceived as the skills needed by our students to occupy positions of technology and innovation that make our country a global leader. And so I think I have a perspective from the county, state, and nation that would allow me to use that in making decisions related to our school district. I also am a science teacher, so I have analytical skills. I'm a problem solver, and I think I can work well with others. I've worked
Your
with
time is done.
a lot of staff members, administrators, and school boards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haskins. Doug Thompson, you are next.
Got me riding drag with the herd here. Thank you. Hi, I'm Doug Thompson. I've lived in Fremont County for 56 years. My wife and I owned and operated a cattle ranch out in southeast Fremont County. My formal education is math and business education. Many of you know me as county commissioner. I served in that position for 4 terms. But before that, I served 20 years on the Jeffrey City School Board. I served as the president of the Wyoming School Boards Association during that tenure, and I represented District Number 9 when we consolidated with Lander. There are a lot of good things going on in the Lander School District. I'm running because I have some concerns that I think need to be addressed. The first is the implementation of our standards, evaluation, and grading. I believe we are doing a disservice to some of our students, especially those going for higher education. It was stated during a school board meeting that there is no strategy for those desiring an A average. I think that's doing a disservice. I believe we're teaching our children to be test takers and gaming the system as opposed to academic excellence. We're preparing them for an unrealistic future in higher education and in the workforce. Failing first and then improving to get a good grade is a failed philosophy. I think we need to do a better job communicating with our community and our parents. We need to make them partners in education rather than doing education and hoping they get the message. Our jargon, the educational jargon, is foreign to the public. And I think even one of the questions uses acronyms. We need to talk English to the parents in the community because we have to enlist them. Public school education funding is going to be crucial in the future. And we have to have partners in the community that understand the value of education and can bring that message to the legislature rather than going down saying, we're education, give us everything. I have a successful record of lobbying the legislature to get supplemental education that kept Jeffrey City School District going for a number of years. Many of us thought us dead, but we were successful out there. Like I said, there are a lot of good things going on in this school. I have a proven record of governance and advocacy, and I'd like to solicit your vote for early voting is going on even as we speak, and on November 6th for the Lander School Board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are going to move into the questions portion of our forum. And we're going to start with the first question focused on school safety and security. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer these questions. And at that time, I will go ahead and let you know when your 90 seconds is up. The first question is, are you committed to continuing with the Alice model? And our first candidate is Jared Kale.
"90 seconds isn't a lot of time." Absolutely, I'm committed to Alice model. I think that it's been a fantastic model for school safety, for the district as a whole. I think that the challenge program has been a fantastic addition to the Alice model as a whole, because it takes our kids and helps round that out to take individuals that may be on that bubble, maybe feeling insecure, maybe may not feel like they have a place in the school, and gives them a bit more of a voice, or at least a little more belonging. And I really encourage, in addition to Alice, or as part of Alice, I really think that the first step is making sure that our teachers, our staff, our kids, our parents, even school board members, when they see something, they need to say something, they need to do something. That's where safety really starts. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Kale. For those who don't know, Alice training is active shooter civilian response training. I just wanted to make that clear. Our next candidate is Michelle Escudero.
I support continuing the Alice training, and I think it's a really important measure because it allows students and staff, it gives them the tools for them to make decisions that are concurrent with the situation that they're seeing in classrooms or in buildings. And I think that that's really important. You know, the world isn't black and white. The world is gray. And I think that's what we need to teach our kids. And in order to make our schools safer, we need to work in the gray zone. And I think the Alice training is a wonderful training to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Escudero. Our next candidate is Teresa Ryder.
The question is, do I support the Alice model? And the absolute answer is yes. Yes, yes, yes. Last year I requested that all of our employees be mandatory, that they participate in it, and I am happy to say that Travis and Dr. Barker took that and ran with it, and I'm thrilled to know that they've received that training. Sadly, we live in a world where most of us, we never even thought of having to defend ourselves in a classroom. We never even dreamt of some of the scenarios that has went on across the United States. It can happen here, and we have to provide our students and our teachers the tools necessary to keep themselves safe and to keep themselves around them. I agree that the challenge days ties into that, in that we help break down some barriers, we help get kids talking, and we help others see that in reality we're all not that different. We all have the same fears and the same goals, and those two things I've been a strong proponent of, and I will continue to be a proponent of.
Thank you, Ms. Ryder. Our next candidate is Brett Berg.
I'm not exactly sure how many different ways a person can say yes. Alice training, I feel is a great opportunity for our staff to be engaged in a somewhat unpleasant but potential situation. As Teresa alluded to, this last fall, all of our district staff, nearly all, if not all, went through an Alice training. And I think it's a great program. The instructors that we have locally understand it. I heard good things from staff in regards to the training. So yes, I support continuing with the Alice program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. John Wood, you're our next candidate.
Well, one more way to say yes. Yes, I support Alice. I'm Alice trained myself. But I think Alice is an important and vital component, one component in a much larger safety program for our kids. School safety is a key issue nationwide. It's a key issue for us here at Lander and with our schools. It's one part. Other major parts: safe to tell, challenge days, see something, say something. All of these things mean something to our staff and to our parents. They're all key phrases. The other thing that I would add, we really need to take a hard and fast look at mental health, identifying students that are at risk, and intervening earlier than before they do something serious like committing suicide or going on a shooting spree themselves. Mental health is a key factor here. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death for our age group. We need to pay attention to that. Much more likely suicide than a shooter. Alice is key, is really, really, really important, but it doesn't address the most significant and most probable causes of serious injury to our kids. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wood. Carl Weller.
I also support Alice, but like John, I agree there's many more components that we need to focus on. The seeing and observation is critical. We need that from the staff, the administrators, the teachers, the people working in the lunchroom, the people on the buses. We need all those observational skills. But we also need to reach out to all of these students. I look at Lander High School and it looks, or Lander school system, and it looks like a small school system to me. My graduating class was 450 students. So it always seemed like a challenge to get to know people. But you know, we have around 550 here in the high school. We should be reaching out to all these students and observing them, communicating with them. The quiet, shy people, we should reach out. I work a lot with at-risk youth in the training and hiring that I do, and I make a point of connecting with those folks that are the ones that are quiet and flying under the radar. We don't just assume that they must be okay, they're quiet, they're okay, or maybe they're troubled. We need to connect with everyone, and that's another key component to it.
Thank you, Mr. Weller. Doug Thompson, you're our next candidate.
Thank you. I attended the meetings on school safety. There were probably a dozen strategies that were put forth, one of which was Alice. I think it's a component. There were several very basic things that could be done even before all of this training. That is restricting entry to the schools to one place and having that secured. These don't cost a lot of money. They're very basic things. And I think we're kind of, when we get focused on one solution, we avoid and neglect those other very viable, effective, economical solutions. So I think we did have a meeting. We were promised administrative response. We did not receive that. So this is another thing about communicating with the community. When decisions are made and the strategies are laid forth, they need to be communicated. It helps the people feel secure and the bad guys to know that the schools are protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Dee Harrison.
You know, I agree with Alice training. I've been through Alice training, and I've actually been through active shooter training also. And it started in '08 when I was actually in Firth High School. And they brought the police brought some people in, and it was just the staff and a few kids. And they actually had actual shotguns, actual guns that were just blanks. And it's a whole different experience to hear a gun go off in a building. I want to know if our students know what to do. Yeah, we've had Alice training in our teachers as teachers and as staff, but do our students know? That's what I want to know. There is so many of them and few of us. And if we taught them what Alice training is, or what Alice is. Also along that line, is the psychology involved in it? Are our counselors doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are our teachers doing what they're supposed to be doing? The mental health of our students is the most important thing. If they are breaking down and they're not being accepted, then that's a problem. Also, with the Safe to Tell and the challenge days, those are awesome experiences. And I agree with those and other things that go along with those. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Mark Haskins?
I, like the rest of the panel, I truly support Alice training. It's an ongoing, it's developing, it's changing. We've improved as a school. The school that I was involved with, LVHS, we've improved greatly with this type of training from the first year that we worked with it. However, I do believe that security and safety begins with what goes on with our students when they walk on our campuses and enter our schools. In our school, it started, I saw really with Al Sparkman, and I see it with Brad Neuendorf and Officer Conlog and different teachers, McConnell and others, when they are out at the very front of the door and they're meeting the students individual one by one as they walk in, and they're greeting them, and it shows the students that we care about them. They talk about individual things that these students are involved in. They get to know them by name, and it begins there when a student of ours feels like they belong. And we have a lot of diversity, and that differences are okay. When students walk into a classroom and they know it's okay to raise their hand and maybe not answer a question accurately or fail and it's okay. And so I think, and bullying being addressed, these are the roots, that have to be addressed along with this training. Thank you.
Our next set of questions will be about the quality of learning. The question is, are you committed to small class sizes, especially in secondary grades? If state funding continues to be cut, will you commit to protecting small class sizes? Dee Harrison, you are first.
As an educator, I understand class sizes. Right now I'm an elementary PE teacher, and they actually double up my classes because they're trying to get so much involved in that, and it's very, very difficult to actually teach. You actually become a babysitter instead of a teacher. And so yes, I am very committed to small class sizes. That means the teacher can actually go one-on-one with a student and actually teach them what they need to be taught. Okay, so small class sizes are very, very important. I've actually been in class sizes where 60, 70 kids in high schools, and you cannot individually teach those kids. It is like a college class, is what it is. And you don't get the relationship that you need with those kids to actually teach them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Brett Berg.
I am committed to keeping class sizes small within consideration. We have a finite amount of money to deal with in the district, And I think that the 60 to 70 students that Dee's talking about is far too many to be able to handle in a K-12 setting. That being said, a few years ago, the legislature mandated a 16 to 1 student to teacher ratio in the elementary levels. We've got a school board member that often says, you know, I'd rather have 22 good kids than 16 and 5 of them problem students. So I think there's variables here, and we have to keep in mind that it's not a blank check for our district. We've got to work with the funding that we have and within that budget. So that being said, I do like the idea of smaller class sizes.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. John Wood?
For me, the broader question is quality and learning. The specific question is about class sizes. I don't think there's any class in the entire district, Fremont County 1, that approaches 60 students to a teacher. We already have fairly small class sizes because we have a legislature and a funding model that's fairly generous. The real problem is that funding model is being challenged. And what are we going to do as a school board to address that? How are we going to try to make sure that resources are there? And if they have to be cut by our legislature, what are we going to cut? I'm not in favor of large class sizes, but it is only the ratio of a teacher to the student. What about paraprofessionals? What about our safety and security officers we were just talking about? What about our administrators? What about the mental health and our counselors? What about all of these people that aren't getting measured in the quality of learning in that one metric of class size? It's a very nuanced discussion, and I think it takes a school board that really understands the details and are guided by professional administration like we have in our superintendent. Am I going to commit to 16 to 1? Hell or high water, we'll fire everybody else in the district and keep 16 to 1? No, I won't. It's a very nuanced discussion, and I think we need to take that into account.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Jared Kale, you're next.
When I think about what is the most important aspect of a kid's success in a classroom, I think it's that one-on-one ability for them to get help and leadership from a teacher. And I think a lot of that has to do with class size. So am I committed to that? Absolutely. And I think in the perfect world, we'd have all the funding we needed at all the time we needed, and we would be able to, get to a 1-to-1 ratio. The reality is we don't have that perfect world. And I would I would always advocate to get the smallest class size possible, absolutely. But I also think we need to work within a realistic framework. I guess that's the bottom line. That's my response would be, yes, we need to work towards a small class size. We also need to be realistic when we take a look at what we can do relative to that.
Thank you, Mr. Kale. Michelle Escudero.
There are basically two things that across the board affect education positively. And one is class size and the other is parent participation. And I think class size is a real issue, and I think class sizes have to remain small so we can optimize the learning. The other thing, though, is that we really need engaged learners. And how do you give students learning that is engaging, where they kind of see the real world effect that their education can have? And I think that that's really about that career and applied learning, the project-based learning, and really using education as a model for expressing not just theory, but also applied learning. And I think that's really important. It goes along with the class size, because you can't do that in a big classroom. You just can't. Those teachers become mentors. They're not just giving out information that the students are going to regurgitate. Students have to learn how to process, create projects, and that kind of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Escudero. Teresa Nearwriter, please.
Class sizes. Yes, I support smaller class sizes, but I also understand what it looks like right now for our district. We built a school a couple years ago, and then we were mandated 16:1. After that school opened, we realized that if we follow that 16:1 mandate by the legislator, we don't have enough classrooms in the building. So here comes the piece of experience that I understand after being on the school board for several years. I understand what this looks like. At the high school, we've tried to offer several different classes to kind of engage the students, but when there's only 3 students enrolled in that class, we have to be physically accountable and responsible for those state dollars. Do we really pay a teacher to teach just 3 students? We have to be creative on how we might blend classes together, but we also have to be mindful of our dollars and what makes sense. I completely agree with Mr. Manwood in that it takes a school building, all of the pieces of the puzzle to educate that child. One aspect of how many students is in a classroom, that's just a small portion of that child's learning. I have to trust the administrators, and class sizes is not basically the school board's decision. If Mr. Neuendorf says that science class is a good class with 23 students, and Mr. Haskins, when he was a science teacher, if he says that's fine for me, I have to respect the professionals that we've hired to provide the education. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Haskins.
Well, class size is a complicated issue. There's a lot of elements that go into it. There are demands placed on teachers. There's only so many teachers to go around, and there are demands, students wanting to get into various classes. We have singletons that are only offered one section, one semester. It puts a lot of pressure. Lots of students want into that. Maybe it's a dual credit chemistry course or other types of courses that are only offered once. Sometimes, and administrators, they want reasonable class sizes. We all do. Everybody in education tries for that. However, it's a slippery slope to get what you want all the time. And truly, some large classes function very well, and sometimes classes are too small. I've had classes where you have 6 or 7 and the dynamics just weren't there. So it is a very complicated issue. Of course, we do strive to have smaller class sizes. A lot of anxiety as a science teacher when you have an overflowing lab. I mean, you just feel like you're on pins and needles trying to, you think about security and safety. Things can go bad awfully quickly in a laboratory environment. And so it's on all our minds. I think we do the very best we can, and it's all, and we do know it's an important issue.
Doug Thompson.
I think to put the quality of learning just basically in class sizes to miss the mark. I think the greater factor in education is school atmosphere and discipline. A well-disciplined class, you can handle more kids. When they aren't, and the policies against bullying and hazing and those things are not followed, you can have a one-on-one and still have a problem. So I think I've always supported smaller class sizes in elementary grades. If you do a good job there, you cut down your problems later on in middle school and high school. But I think the consistent message is people are there to learn. We have a good atmosphere. It's a disciplined atmosphere that will overcome instances where funding is short creating those small class sizes, especially in the secondary grades. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl Weller.
So I do support smaller class sizes. I find it ironic driving to Riverton every morning, listening to news about our legislature wanting to, limit funding for this and that, and they're concerned of how do we keep people in our state, yet they're not providing funding for education, or we'll have groups that want to increase the classroom size. We need to invest in our students, and we need to invest in our next generation of Wyoming residents. And I think we need to press upon our legislators that it's important to fund schools and fund schools with the appropriate size classrooms. I would like to see our legislators in our classrooms. I think it's important for us to be in those classrooms. I think it's important for those people making the decisions about classroom funding to be there. I work with folks that in Riverton that bring their children to Shoshone every day because they have smaller classroom size and feel like they're getting a better education. These kids are driving that far. I think it's really important to keep that size down, and we need to spend appropriately. If we believe in Wyoming, we need to invest in Wyoming.
Thank you, Mr. Weller. We are going to move into questions on community involvement. Will you support video live stream of school board meetings and archives of meeting videos? How will you work to improve community involvement? Our first candidate is Doug Thompson.
I have no problem with videoing school board meetings and archiving them if they have a purpose. If we're just doing it to say we're doing it and putting them on the shelf, it's kind of a useless effort. I believe that involving the community, and I addressed this when I started, is essential. But having people watch us work as a board is probably not the best way of doing that. We need to communicate through all medias. Let people know what we're doing and talk in English, not acronyms and educational jargon. It's essential that we communicate with the community and be part of that community rather than expecting them to come along for the ride. So there are ways of doing that in the media, print media, Facebook. There are a lot of ways of doing it other than video streaming and archiving it. And if we do not communicate well with our community, we will not have those partners that will lead us to success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Dee Harrison.
So, I don't mind video streaming or anything like that, as long as it has a purpose, like you just said. The community involvement is the most important thing that we can have, other than parent involvement. And the reason being is because our students are the future and the future workforce. And if we have community members that are willing to come in and help and educate our kids on different careers, different things to do in their careers or in this world, that's huge. Also sponsorships within athletics, that's huge. Okay, those type of involvements are huge. But the thing is like I said, social media, all those things we can use. But how many of us know by word of mouth what's going on in the school? Not very many of us. I know that the emails that I get for my students, they're great. I love them because I know what's going on. But what about the rest of the community? How do they know? And I understand that there's a Facebook page, but how many people are involved with that? So getting more communication somehow is what I want to do. and getting the community involved with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haskins. Mr. Harrison, Mark Haskins is next.
On the video streaming, I really do not have a strong opinion either way, although communication is essential and transparency is essential. What we do on the school board has to be above board, have to be communicated. However that is done is fine with me, but it is absolutely crucial that the school board is seen to be a transparent body and that information is available district-wide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haskins. Brett Berg, you're next.
I wouldn't have a problem with the live streaming and the video. I don't see a huge viewing audience of people wanting to watch our board meetings. We live in a community that it's 5 minutes from one end of town to the other. These are open meetings. Every one of them is an open meeting that people can come to if they want to watch a school board meeting. Most of it's not too exciting, to be honest with you. There's a lot of meetings. I think I'd rather watch paint dry, but I don't care if this is a make or break deal for somebody. You bet. Let's live stream it and video it and archive it and all that stuff. I just don't see a huge advantage to that. As far as community involvement, I think more important to me than community involvement is parent involvement. And I think that if we can get our parents involved in their kids' education, the community is gonna come along. We've done great things in the last few years to try to facilitate parent involvement, and I think we need to continue working in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. Carl Weller.
I'm not opposed to having videoing of the school board meetings, although I think it would be rather soporific and it might be a great way for all of us to get a good night's sleep. Most of the meetings can be a little dry. It would be nice to see more involvement. Friday's board meeting, I was the only non-school person, staff or trustee there. So there was one parent. So it would be nice to see more actively involved community and parents at all of these meetings. I think using technology however we could would be great. If you look at our schools now with the different grades in different areas, we have parents with students in multiple campuses. It'd be great to stream PI meetings or something, if we want to start really streaming things. I'd like to see us, if we have people elected to the Board of Trustees, if we could stream them in if they had to be absent. It'd be great for them to be involved in all of the school board meetings. So the technology would be great. The unfortunate thing with technology is we assume everyone has access to it or can afford to get access to it. And we need to be more using old school methods of getting people involved.
Thank you, Mr. Weller. Michelle Escudero.
I think this question is really about transparency, and transparency gives legitimacy and buy-in from your community, and I think that's the real issue. One of the school board meetings is on Friday mornings at And it's just not an accessible time for people. And I think it's really important that this work is done in the public eye. Maybe video would be one way that the public could view, and it could be in the public eye. I think also the minutes that are uploaded onto the school's website are accurate in terms of, the nuts and bolts of what happens at a meeting, but you definitely don't get the feel of really, well, what was really said. And so the minutes aren't really giving you the real feel of a meeting. And video definitely would give you the feel of a meeting. This year, the school has decided that parent participation is one thing that they're going to be working very hard at, getting more parents involved. And I think it's like anything. We've got so much noise coming at us all the time. So how do you get through it all so you can get your message out? And I think what it takes is just so many different types of communications. And some people are online, some people aren't, some people use Twitter, some people don't, some people use Facebook, some people, and so I think that's the nature of the beast right now, is that we're going to have to throw out a variety of different communication methods and see what works. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Padilla. Teresa Neerreiter.
So I counted up how many forums I've been to. This will mark my third, and at every one of them, communication is always a hot topic. So my point is, this isn't a new problem. This is an ongoing target that we are constantly looking at. Do I support live streaming our school boards? Absolutely. If that's what it would take to get our parents involved and interested and motivated to be instrumental in their students' education, I support it. I don't have a problem with it. We live in a live feed world right now. When I first came on the school board, we had very limited ways of communicating with the public. We now have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have an upgraded website that Dr. Barker is always wanting to improve and thinking of ways of having it made more user-friendly, so to speak, for our families. We send out emails, we send out school group text messages, we have parent portal. The list goes on and on and on. My message is there's not a magic answer, because we're all human beings. We all have different ways we gather information. I can tell you that information works, because if we are cutting down a tree, or if we're tearing down an old school building, or if we have problems with the band, or if we're talking school security, our school board meetings rooms fills up. So something is getting out to the public somehow, some way. When there is an issue that burns with you, the community, or the parent, you do show up, and I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Neerreiter. John Wood.
Michelle pulls it down. I pull it. There's some great wisdom in the answers that you just heard. I think the larger point in the forum tonight is there's some really wonderful people running for school board, so you guys are going to have a tough job. I have a tough job deciding who I'm going to vote for. I agree with everything that was said. If people want live streaming of school board meetings and that becomes identified to us, that's great. I think my take on this question is this. Communication, we always talk about us communicating out as the board. There's another side of that I think is really critically important. How does the board listen to you? How do we gather that information? I'll offer two suggestions. I think one of the candidates said they don't have an agenda. That's kind of my line. I don't have an agenda except this issue. The only thing I've really thought about, other than kind of being involved in the industry for a long time, are these 2 points. How can I listen to you? The first one would be, I go to parent-teacher conferences, most lately in the high school. There's teachers there at tables, they have signs, and parents come and talk to them. Why isn't there a table there with school board members? Come talk to the school board. Parents are right there. So that's one thought. And the other is, remember I come most recently from a higher ed background, and we talk about office hours. I'll hold office hours, 2 hours every week. I'll tell you where I'm having a cup of coffee in the community. You want to come talk to a school board member, come have a cup of coffee with me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Witt. Jared Hale.
Boy, there are some great ideas and all that. Problem with going last is everyone has already talked about a lot of the great ideas. You know, I would say live streaming, that's right up my alley. As a computer programmer, I think that's a fantastic idea. I love it. The only problem with live streaming is it is one way. It is a one-way communication method. What I think we really want at school board meetings are people to attend the meetings and give the school board feedback. And I think it's wonderful if we live stream it. I really think that we should do that. I just think that we should keep in mind that it's not the holy grail of communications. It is a one-way stream. When we do talk about, I at one point was a co-owner of a marketing company, and when we talked about communications and marketing, the first thing you do when you take a look at a marketing plan is you ask who are your audience members? Who are we really trying to communicate with? And when we talk about communication from the school board, I think that's the first question we need to ask as we try to communicate is who are our target audiences? So many times we try to make a one-size-fits-all approach with communication strategy, particularly with the board. And I think in a case like with the school board, we need to say, look, are we trying to target businesses? Well, that's going to be a completely different communication strategy than if we're trying to target parents or if we're trying to get our communication out to teachers. So I do think that we need to tailor our communication strategies a little bit differently than we've done in the past. Lastly, as a tech guy, as a computer geek, as my kids would like to call me, this does present an opportunity which is to have kids come and actually do the live stream feed for the school boards. I think that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kale. Our next two questions will pertain to the retention of quality educators. Will you support guaranteed duty-free lunch periods for all school staff? Will you support duty-free planning time for all educators? John Wood, you are first. Those are two questions, but both in the same time frame.
Very good. Okay. So, one question with two parts. I think the real question is retaining quality staff. You heard a lot of people say this. I can't say enough about Mark Haskins. My kids had Mark as an instructor. Boy, did they learn chemistry. We have some fabulous staff and teachers here, and we need to keep them here. Remember what I said the last answer about listening? If the staff tell me that duty-free lunch and duty-free planning hour is super important to them, I think we need to make that happen. I think there's lots of much bigger issues that I think if I talk to most of our staff and teachers in this district, they wouldn't be talking to me about duty-free lunch. They wouldn't be talking to me about planning hour. I mean, planning hour, of course it's planning hour. You should be planning your education. So I don't know what that means to have duties during your planning hour, but there's really much bigger issues here. And the question is the board listening to their staff? And are they addressing those issues that are going to keep high-quality teachers in the classroom for a long time? We've been successful at Fremont County 1 doing that. My kids are a testament to that. They receive an excellent education here from a number of incredibly good teachers all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade. Those teachers are still here. Why are they here? What can we do to make sure they stay here? We need to listen to the answers and find that out.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Jared Kale.
I think those are very wise words from John. I think, in my perspective, I think that the first thing I would want to do is go talk to the administration and talk to the teachers. I'm not really sure whether this is that large of a deal. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. And if it is, I think it's something that we need to address. I certainly know that I need time during my day for some time to take a break, reflect on my day, have some creativity. It's an important part of what I do every day during my daily routine. That said, I do think that we don't want a board of trustees to try to micromanage these issues. We don't want a board to get down to the level of trying to make day in, day out decisions for the administration. If we do, I think we're going down a very dangerous path, and these are the kind of decisions that I think we'd probably want to leave in the administration's hands.
Thank you, Mr. Kale. Brett Berg.
I would agree with Jared. I don't know if this is an issue in our district or not. If it is, I would hope that our administration would bring it to the board. If we're going to dictate whether we have duty-free lunch periods, duty-free planning periods, that's not our job as board members. I think that that's something administration makes a recommendation on, and we can support that recommendation or not. But I think this is an issue that the administration hopefully would be enlightening the board on, and I don't think it's a board decision to make without administration's involvement.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. Doug Thompson?
I think under the current implementation of the standards evaluation and grading, duty-free lunch, duty-free planning is out the window. It will never happen. Right now we have staff teaching and reteaching. When you fail first and improve later, they have to reteach. They have to reteach the ones that failed first on purpose, and then they have to reteach the ones that really didn't get it. And I think we're going to burn out our staff unless we look at this grading and evaluation system. Teachers do need some time to compose themselves, to prepare for their next classes, but under the current implementation of this plan, I think those goals will not happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mark Haskins?
Yes, I think that Mr. Thompson, I agree with him completely. This is a very big deal. You know, teaching can be very hectic. It can be a real grind. Breaking down labs, putting together labs, thinking about individuals that are struggling, dealing with reteaching, retesting, all of those types of things is very time consuming. And also, as Jared indicated, sometimes a teacher, we have very short lunch breaks. It's not a long period of time. You need to just have a moment where you do not have kids right in your face and just have a little bit of time to catch your breath. If you picked up the Time magazine for September, is a 24th issue, Time magazine. I have a master's degree, 16 years of experience, worked 2 jobs. I'm a teacher in America. You know, it's hard to make ends meet when you're a teacher in America. Many of the teachers in this district, they coach before and after school. They coach on the weekends. They have multiple preps. They're doing all types of things for all types of families and students. And it is imperative that they have the time to prepare lessons that challenge students, that get students to problem solve and not just absorbing facts and regurgitating. That takes time. And a good lesson solves a lot of problems, discipline problems, everything. If you've got a dynamic lesson, the kids fall in line, and it takes time.
Haskins.
Thank you.
Steve Harrison?
So I got 2 parts here. The duty-free lunch, I agree with, but what a great opportunity to go and build relationships with the students as they're eating lunch outside of your classroom. Okay, also, it also depends on what the teacher's actually doing during their duty or during their planning time. Are they just sitting there, not doing anything, not planning, or are they actually planning? I've been in both situations as a teacher, and I understand, but there is so little time to plan as teachers, especially if you've got so many different things that you're teaching. So I agree with the planning period, and I support the planning period. But like I also said, like Brett said, why are we micromanaging this as a board? This should be done at the administration level. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Carl Weller?
So I'm going to assume that if this is a question that's being asked, it's relevant to the staff. And I'm not sure about the board micromanaging it, but I think we have to hear this. If this is a question that's being generated, then it needs to be paid attention to. I come from, when people ask questions, we need to listen and then try and find answers. The faculty and administrators and other staff need time to plan. They need time to think. They need to get their head into their lessons and get them tight, like Mark was talking about. That's a compelling class. It's really distracting. You can't certainly do that at lunch or while you're being interrupted during your planning time. We want good, creative, inventive classes and teaching, and if we don't give teachers the time to do those things, they'll just fall back to their same old things that they did. Oh, I don't have time to plan. I'll just do this. This will work. We need to give them the support. We want to retain teachers. We want to bring teachers to the state or keep them in our community. Then we need to let them succeed.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Michelle Escudero.
I think principals know best how to use their staff and their budgets within their buildings. And maybe this is a question that is specific to particular buildings. You know, the privy of the board is to work with the vision and mission and the goals and the outcomes. Also to be an advocate for the greater school district at the state level. I think that this comes down to, is there a system where feedback and good listening skills are being used? You know, is there a system where teachers and staff can provide feedback? And I know in the past, I've talked to some very, very good teachers in our school district, and they haven't felt like they could really tell me the truth. And I knew that. And I think they feared for their job. And I think that's not the kind of atmosphere that we want. We want an atmosphere where people feel like, you know, we're all learning. It's that growth model that we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Escudero. Teresa Neureiter.
So I have to say that I truly feel this isn't completely a school board decision. This falls back to the building principal. The question came up, is there already a system? Yeah, we've had this discussion. I know we've had this discussion, and we've approved schedules in buildings where the principal wanted more planning time for their educators. We trusted the principal, and I believe that that's in place. We have to remember that we are a board of 7, that we are not going to be dictating to the board, the building principals and the superintendent of how each minute of each day is going to be taken care of in a building, and it isn't technically a school board member's responsibility to create the teacher's schedule. That falls down to collaboration with their staff, creating a schedule that works for the building and creating a schedule that works for the teacher. I agree they need adequate time for planning, and they certainly need adequate time for lunch, and I'm hoping that that is happening in the buildings. If it isn't, then I support them working on it.
Thank you, Ms. Neureiter. We do have one question left in this formal part of the forum. I want to thank the candidates for working within the parameters of the forum. You're doing a great job. And thank the audience for sticking around. The reception will be soon, so think about those questions you have for individuals as you see them out in the foyer. Mark Haskins is our first to answer. Will you support continuing contracts after the first 3 years of service for administrators, counselors, librarians, and support professionals?
Yes, I do. This is somewhat misunderstood. We call it tenure. Once a teacher in the state of Wyoming signs their 4th contract, you receive tenure. And it means simply that if you are fired, you can have a hearing to find out why you were fired. If you don't have tenure in the state of Wyoming, you can be fired and never know the reason. So, I think tenure is imperative. There is some criticism about the grading system. Now, there are a lot of merits about this grading system LVHS is on, but there has been some criticism. It would be terrifying to be a bit critical of something in your school district and realize that you can be fired just because you've rubbed the wrong person wrong. Maybe a board member, maybe as a coach. In this district, there's a lot of focus on coaching. You make a few bad moves. Once again, you look at the percentage of teachers that leave teaching. Whatever research you look at, it's around 20 to 40% of teachers quit teaching within the first 5 years. And so I think it's complicated, and there must be some protection for young teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haskins. Dee Harrison.
I agree with tenure and being secure within your job. But like Mark said, it's if you don't agree with something, can you communicate that? And that's a very, very hard thing to do, because as a teacher, it's very hard to communicate something that's negative towards somebody that can fire you very quickly. And so I believe there should be an evaluation system or a communication of trust system that goes both ways. So the students can evaluate the teachers can evaluate their administration, so we know exactly what's going on, and if there's a trust issue going on within that. I think there should be a checks and balances system within that. Now, if there is, then we got teachers that are secure and feel secure so they can actually teach and do what they need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. John Wood, you are next.
So this is a very subtle question. So let me give you a 30-second side on the subtlety here. Teachers by state law on the offer of the 4th contract have a continuing contract. This question is not about teachers. Here's my answer. I'm not sure, yes, and I'm not sure. The question is asking about administrators. I'm not sure if they should be eligible for continuing contract. There's been times in our district here, we can all think of it back in the last several years. We've had previous superintendents. Do we really want to wait 3 years to get rid of a superintendent? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So I'm not sure about administrators. Counselors, yes. Librarians, yes. I think at the offer of the 4th contract, they should have a continuing contract. Support professionals, I need to talk to legal counsel. Again, this reaffirming phrase here. I don't know all the answers. I need to listen. There's some very particular legal reasons about support personnel. They are not contract personnel. They are not offered a contract. I really need to talk to a legal analysis to understand what it would mean for a support personnel to have a continuing contract. It starts with, are they going to be on contract? I don't know the answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
I agree with John. Looking back over the last decade or so, as far as administrators, and that we've had some contracts or people leave mysteriously, is kind of what you hear as just a person that's not connected to the system. Clearly, we need good evaluation and coaching. I always come to the point with hiring people that I hire them to find reasons then to keep them. It's not good to hire people and then figure out ways to get rid of them. So it fundamentally comes down to developing and keeping staff and helping them be successful.
Thank you, Mr. Weller.
Successful. Thank you.
Brett Berg.
I am not in favor of continuing contract status for this list of staff. I think that if there's an effective evaluation tool and effective evaluation processes, that protects the staff. I'm not a fan of teacher tenure, to be honest with you. I think it works good for teachers. I'm not so sure about students. So I think that a good teacher is the most underpaid person in today's society, and a poor teacher is the most overpaid. So I think that these positions need to stand on their own 2 feet every year. That's my thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. Jared Kale.
I served on a board for the school board here a couple of years ago, and one of the things that struck me was that the number of moving parts that teachers have to deal with, grading systems, curriculum, schedules, things fly all over the place. And one of the things that they lack, I think, is stability. And I do think that stability for teachers, finding it whatever corner that they can find it, is an important thing. Honestly, I can't say that I either support or don't support the contract status. I haven't looked at the issue enough. I do think that we need to make sure that we do support stability within the teaching structure. But I also will say that one of my girls came home one time and said, "Hey Dad, what does tenure mean?" And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because I had a teacher that said, hey, you know what, kids, if you don't like this, why don't you go look up what the word tenure is?" Okay? We need to empower our administrators to deal with problems when they have teachers like that, as well as support the teachers that are strong teachers in the district. Honestly, I don't know how that fits into the contract situation. I need to talk to the administration and teachers a little more about it. But we need to support our great teachers, and we need to be empowered to do something about teachers that need to move on.
Thank you.
And I actually think it's kind of strange that they're two different systems. And I know that there's more reasons out there than I understand, and I need to look into them. But I think it's strange that you have these incredibly important people in your school system that don't have that same option to have tenure. And I think that's really odd, especially think about your administrators of your principals and key people. You know, you want to keep them happy. You want them there if they're doing a good job. If you have a good evaluation system that has a 360 component to it, and you're actually doing it, takes time to do evaluations. You have to have the system set up that promotes feedback that's honest and constructive and that kind of thing. Then you should be able to keep those quality people. And I think tenure is the way that you can get your key administrators to stay longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Escudero. Teresa Neerrider.
This is a difficult question. Because we are tasked as a board to deliver the best employees, to deliver the best education to your students. And in a perfect world, we have a crystal ball. Our superintendent has a crystal ball. Our principals have crystal balls, and we always hire the right person for the job, and everything is perfect till that person retires. 99.9% of the time, that actually does happen in our district. But unfortunately, there are times when, as a school board, we are faced, as a superintendent, he is faced with some difficult decisions. We have to make those difficult decisions sometimes. And it always boils down to, and I can guarantee you if this has been said one time behind closed doors, it's been said many, many, many. What is best for the students? And that's what's always going to come down to for me if I'm reelected, is what's best for the school, for the students. I can't promise you I will support a 3-year contract for a superintendent. I can't promise you I will support a 3-year contract for a librarian. I can't understand why we need to have our janitors on contract. I mean, there's so much to this question. I don't know that it particularly pertains to our district. I think that we have improved our evaluation systems. We do reach out to the staff. We do reach out to other administrators to evaluate the superintendent, and unfortunately, we don't always hear back. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Narrator. Doug Thompson?
First of all, it's contrary to state law to tenure non-certified staff. So that will answer part of this question. I've not been an advocate of administrative tenure. I think things change enough that they do not do that. Some school districts give them multi-year contracts. I've never been a big fan of that either. I think evaluation is the key to tenure. If the administrators do a good job of evaluating in a non-threatening manner, then you can have good teachers whether they're tenured or not. And it was said that you don't have to give them a hearing. We tried that once and we're in court, so that's probably not the best way to go. There are, as I reviewed the policies, there are evaluation policies and a grievance procedure. If a teacher feels like they are not being fairly treated, there is a grievance procedure. Now, that's not always the best way to get on the best side of the administrator, but I think that's one way of getting the message through the channels to the board where they can work on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And that wraps up the end of the questions that we have. We would like you to join us for a reception in the foyer, and I want to assure candidates that I will not have to interrupt you in the foyer and want to thank you for allowing me to do so and keeping us on time. You guys have a tough decision facing you in November, or voting early, and I hope you look forward to talking to these candidates and enjoying some refreshments. Thank you so much.